We had our busy weekend of sports with Marcel, with Unidome Saturday, 10 o'clock. And we went to the Iowa game right after that. So 2 football. So we probably beat you.
Oh, yeah. I just have a basketball tournament.
I tell you, Mike's not coming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
He just texted.
yep.
Or tied.
How did I get that?
I need 6 bells.
Is it
Yep.
time of year to put this away?
I haven't seen any flying around these days. Thank God.
Yeah.
What? 6
It is?
Did the bell?
Oh, I'm just going by that.
For the church bell, yes.
Oh, good. I'd like to welcome everybody to our Monday, November 13th, 2023 Cascade City Council meeting. We'll have a call to order with Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Kelton.
Here.
Roush.
Here.
Hush.
Here.
Delaney. Oliphant. Here.
I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Roush,
Second.
second by Kelchin. All in favor?
Aye.
At this point, we have public comment. You have a limit of 3 minutes per person on agenda items and local government issues.
I just have a question about this DOT report. I got a hold of it and took a look at it, and I'm wondering if Custom Precast is in town. Is that a city business?
Half of it is,
Which
Half.
half?
on the right-hand side, the east side of the road.
And so we have to pay, so the city is gonna pay to fix the bridge? I mean, and no figures in here. We don't know.
It
And
wasn't our,
I'm sure the farmer who lives north of me, who's coming in now and turning left with the honey wagons on the new street that's just been paved, isn't in town.
I
You
think
know?
surely from the perspective of how we pay for things, like
Yes.
we are not, you can't have a policy, no one has a policy that says, because you're on the other end of a piece of, or we don't have tollways that if you go over the First Avenue Bridge, that you have to pay, and if you don't go over it, you don't have to pay. So our requirement by the DOT, if it's in our city limits, is to take care of it. And I don't see that there's,
There's Custom Precast in the city limits.
but I'm
Yes.
saying, we don't
We have
say that you
prop-
can't drive.
we actually did a little looking. The property taxes that Custom Precast pays is 7 times what you pay on your property, as well as we buy material from Cascade businesses. We buy probably 95% of our fuel from McDermott Oil. So we buy rock and sand from Bard Concrete. We are supporting local businesses. We donate to the city. We're just, part of our property is not in city limits. We have city gas out there. We're not serviced by city electric, but we have REC, so we are using city services, paying city taxes on our properties.
Well, when we have a report like this, first of all, people should know what's wrong, and people should know what's gonna cost, and none of that came out. I mean, I'm just asking
And
the questions that
we
I
got-
think should be asked.
We got put on a dead end. We got put on the dead end by the state of Iowa. There used to be
Go through.
used to be able to go through.
Yeah.
And
So
we
it's
got,
because of 151's bypass.
we got dead ended.
But again, surely, you're making it seem like we're being irresponsible. We just received the report, we've given it to the city council, and now, as a part of the budget process, we will get prices, we will work with contractors who fix bridges. The one thing that we did out of the 3 things, cleaning out the culvert on Tyler Street, was not really a bridge contractor, it was a cleaning thing.
That's a drainage question.
Right, which
isn't
Weber
it?
Construction could handle, and so the
Wasn't even
council,
a-
right,
no.
but at the last meeting, the council decided we would spend a little bit less on crack sealing to be able to address cleaning that out before we have the fall, winter, and spring runoff that goes down there. But you're making it seem like it is not the the inspector's job to give the council prices. Once we receive it, we will then go and do that. So it's steps, which we're not at that step.
The thing was put up here, somebody said, I guess we should do that, and it was like fait accompli. Really, I mean.
What are you talking about?
We need some discussion.
We
They
thought we
they
made.
just do an inspection and tell you what issues need to be addressed.
And the mayor and I have been underneath the one bridge, and then we thought we made financially responsible decisions on choosing to clean out the one on Aitchison Road, Tyler Street, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, well, that's
yet
a
this year.
drainage issue, that's totally different than running over the bridge and us paying for it. But anyway, I just
But that
feel
will be
like it should have
discussed.
been discussed some more.
No,
But
no
surely we
dis-
haven't done anything with those. Are you talking about the First Avenue Bridge?
I'm talking about the whole thing, it was just.
But we just got it.
It's
No,
just a report of things that need to be addressed.
I provided the council 2 weeks ago with the report because I just got it. I know that, but you're making it seem like in the first 2 weeks of receiving the report that we can have the discussion, have a price, and let everybody know. That's coming. So it's the order of operation. I gave it to them. Then I've reached out to the inspector to say, who would you suggest are the vendors that we talk to? I believe, Mayor, you brought up like 2 companies that were north of us. So we will have them come in, and the council will discuss the cost and will discuss when to budget for it. So we're not, you're making it seem like we just flipped through it and are ignoring it. It's about, they received it, and now we have time to deal with it.
Yeah, and in 24 hours, they were working on the town bridge, I understand why that had to be done, but.
What town bridge?
The bridge across the North Fork.
That was a decision.
That was
on-
months
totally
ago, and see, I
different.
told you that. I said,
That was a
that
long
work has nothing to do with this report. That work was because of the undermining. You came in here and I told you that was being undermined, which we believed it was being done because there was a crack in the storm pipe. And then when they investigated and went into the manhole, they also realized that there was a fault in the sanitary sewer that runs along Herb's rental property, or his BRBO, that had a crack in it. So we were addressing both. That report you are mixing up that has nothing to do with the council. I can go back and give you the minutes, but the council discussed that work. We hired Eastern Iowa Excavating at a time and materials. That's why I told you we can't have a number, because some projects, they don't bid it because they don't know what they're getting into until the end. And so that was a time and materials approved by the council months before that report ever came out, and one has nothing to do with the other. Nothing in that report is what we just worked on.
Oh, all right. I mean, somebody ought to ask these questions.
We talked about it.
Yeah, that,
You're making it seem like the council is irresponsible, not following the rules, and I think that's an unfair statement with regard to these things. The council did discuss it, and that has nothing to do with the bridge report. So you just, please keep the issues in the box that they come from.
thank you.
Haley Roush, Cascade High School at-risk teacher. Maybe a month and a half ago, I set up with Lisa, looking into opportunities at the city for my students, to bring my students on a field trip. As an at-risk teacher, I feel like it's part of my responsibility to expose my students to career opportunities in our community that don't necessarily require a college degree, but are great jobs. In the past, we've gone to Odding's Body Shop, Cascade Manufacturing and Cascade Lumber, Custom Precast, and we've also talked to Sarah Knable from Bob and Lives. 2 weeks ago, however, we got to go on a tour of the wastewater treatment plant. My poor husband, Councilman Roush, has been listening to me talk about the most amazing field trip I've ever been on, because I learned so much. And I want to give like a public thank you to both Phil and Ben for giving up much of their 2 different days to help my classes learn about what's happening at the wastewater treatment plant. We got to look into some microscopes to find the right microorganisms. We got to smell the water. We got to see the water, but really smell the water of what was coming in, and then what they do to it to make it come out. We got to see the computer machines. We got to see the cake drop machine, my personal favorite. We got to go through the tanks. We got to learn about the UV light thing. And I know that Councilman Roush has never been there, and I don't feel like many of the others have been either. And I think it'd be a great opportunity for all to go learn. I don't know how many out of the 28 students I took will be a city employee anywhere or here, but now all 28 of them do know what happens when they flush the toilet and have a greater respect for our city employees, as do I. And so I just want to let you know, I went on the tour 4 times, learned something new every time, and made basically anybody that was around me drowned in what they learned. Poor Kathy, I had to see all the pictures. It was amazing, and it was a great time. So kudos to Ben and Phil. We're hoping to see the clean water side next. But thank you, Lisa, for helping it set up, and thank you to Ben and Phil for what they do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Haley.
Nothing else? Consent agenda, review and approve the following. Minutes, City Council 10/23/23, Library Board 11/6/23, Planning and Zoning 10/19/23, Personnel Committee 10/13/23, Utility Board 11/8/23, and also November 13, 2023 claims and October 2023 financial reports. Is there any concerns about anything on the consent agenda?
I just have one question. For our next meeting, Kathy or Lisa, could you guys just give us an update of where the library is at for their yearly budget? They had a fairly significant book purchases this past month, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Anything else? If there's nothing, I need a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion on the consent agenda.
Motion by Oliphant,
Second?
second by Hush, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 7, I need a motion to open public hearing on a proposed amendment to the Cascade Urban Renewal Area.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second?
Second.
Second by Kelchin. All in favor, or roll call?
Kelchin.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
Hush.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
We are now in public hearing.
So this is the step that this public hearing was advertised, and then anytime that we're doing an amendment to the urban plan renewal, we are required to have a public hearing and just summarize what the projects are that would be going into this urban renewal plan amendment. So the items that we've discussed in the past are for the Rosso properties, which is 109 West First Avenue, the property on the south side of the road that had Butch and Frankie's, and then an apartment upstairs. That was kind of under the, prior to my time, when people were told to come in and get approval after the fact, which we're kind of doing it a different way now. But there would need to be a public hearing because that's private funding. So part of the actions tonight would be for the council to set a public hearing for the next council meeting. And the reason that we're doing that this month is because the project was done and on our valuation for January 1 of '23. So in order to capture that value for the increment, we need to have this approved by December 1. The second private project that's in there is for the Nick Callahan Storage Building. That we are not setting a public hearing for this meeting. We would do that after the December 1st due to the fact that there was no property value on January 1 of '23, and that will be captured on January 1 of '24, so we can do that later, and that was at the advice of the attorneys. And then the projects that are kind of a public nature would be, first of all, even though it's tagged to the, you'll recall that the Brian Bach property where we did that manhole, asked them to bring up a main up Buchanan Street, hook it into the manhole, and then tap it off instead of having a long service, and we agreed to $20,000. So instead of having that be tagged to a private development, because we paid for that and we want to reimburse ourselves, that doesn't require a public hearing, but that $20,000 would be considered an internal advance, and so the city paid for it, and then we'll get paid back by the TIF. So that doesn't require another public hearing. And then you'll recall in this year's budget that we also decided to allocate funds that we would use a small portion, 15% of the wages for myself and for Kathy as city clerk, for the amount of administrative time that we manage the TIF and urban renewal. And so again, because that's an internal advance where the city's paying the wages and then we'll get paid back by TIF, that also does not require a second public hearing, but is in the expenses that we would be charging. And then the final thing is for Highway 136, where we'll be putting any of that debt that we take out this coming year for that project, that if we have capacity to use those funds, that we have the ability to do it if you approve those. One of the requirements is to meet with planning and zoning. They did hold their meeting and reviewed all the plans, and they have to at least comment. They don't have to approve it if for some reason they didn't, but they did recommend approval. The other requirement is that we invite the school district and the county to a meeting, that we invite them to come and comment about it. They are not required to attend. They did not, but they were invited to a meeting in late October, and they receive all the documents. So if they don't really have any questions, that may be why they don't attend. And so those two things happened. So if there's any questions, we can answer them. Otherwise, when we go out of the public hearing, and the actions, like I said, are to consider a resolution amending the plan, to set a public hearing date for the Rosso Properties one, and then to approve an internal advance for the administrative and professional, and then approving an economic development grant, which is again an internal advance regarding the Breinbach property. And then a later date, we'll deal with the Callahan one.
Is there any questions about this? If there's none, I need a motion to close public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Roush,
Second?
second by Oliphant. Roll call.
Roush.
Aye.
Hush.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Calchin.
Aye.
At this point, we had a request to move number 16 up. If there's no concerns with that, I need a motion to move 16 up ahead of number 9.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Motion by Oliphant,
Second.
second by Roush. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are on number 16, and that is consideration on improvements at Thomas Street Southeast and DeLong Avenue Southeast.
So you have your packet page, which is page 61 to 63, I believe. And then I also put a colored copy in front of you. It just kind of explains. So there's a couple things to discuss here. When I get to it, sorry. I have to operate this since Mike's not here.
61.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start first of all just with what's happening. So we were going to talk to you about this at budget time for the public improvement side of it, but first I just want to talk about why it got ramped up. Obviously, everybody knows that the Delaney Auto and Ag had severe damage during our summer storm that we had that ripped their whole roof off, which meant that they had to take the largest portion of the northern end of their building down. And then just from an insurance perspective, trying to make sure that they could get that back up before the winter. And so they have the roof up. They're also going to make some changes. We went through the building permit process, made sure that their existing building had the proper setbacks. They're required to have a 30-foot front setback, which would be considered Thomas Street, and then 0 setbacks for the other 3 sides for when they are abutting other commercial properties. So we confirmed all of that. And then they came and wanted to discuss paving. And so there was a little bit of confusion as to what is allowed and kind of handling it, as we know that DeLong Avenue to their north is not really, while it's right-of-way, we haven't really spent a lot of money out there to make it a truly improved road. And then Thomas Street on their east also is in somewhat poor condition. So I just want everybody to look at this map that I created. I couldn't get it to come up on this computer, so I apologize. But just kind of going through a typical right-of-way. That right-of-way, and either one of these can be Thomas or DeLong, it's a 50-foot right-of-way. And so while those are not curb and gutter, we're trying to treat it as if, you know, like where can Delaney's pave out to into the right-of-way? So when we think about a typical right-of-way, I have these pink lines, which would be the 50-foot edges. That's a typical right-of-way. And then if we were to pave, which would be about the widest that we would pave on a 50-foot right-of-way, we would do a 31 feet between curb to curb if there was curb there. We have narrower roads, but we want to go with what we would have as the widest. So in that 9.5 feet that you have on both sides, between the difference of 50 down to 31, if there was curb on both sides, if you were out on First Avenue in the residential area, you'd have a grassy terrace, and then you'd have a sidewalk in that 9.5 feet. But when you get into more commercial and industrial areas, people are allowed to pave right up to the curb. And that is just like in, whether you're in the residential area, that would be considered your driveway apron. So you're paving in our right-of-way, but you're not, it looks like an extension of a commercial parking lot. And if you're in a residential area, you would see grass, sidewalk potentially, and a curb. So trying to delineate, making sure that we understand where Delaney's can pave to, we went out there, Mark is here, he kind of helped measure some of that, the mayor and I were both out there today. So, we measured for him, we have a pin up at, and Steve's brothers are here, Gary and Alan. They own north of that on the other side of DeLong. And so their pin is there. And that was, we also had the surveyor that Jason hired go out there and make sure that his buildings, like I said, were set back. And so the main pin that's being used to start everything is the southeast corner of the Napper property, which is on the other side of DeLong from them. So then we can count across 50 feet over to the north side of Delaney's. And then we counted back 9.5 feet. And so if there was ever a curb to be there someday, that 9.5 feet north of the Delaney property is where that curb would be. And so that line has been marked, and that's where they can pave to. So that if we were to ever put a curb on that side of the road, even though that's not part of our discussion, we don't want them paving beyond where a curb would meet. However, saying that they can't go beyond their property, if you look like Chuck and Cheryl Ryder have their shop on the kitty corner. They're on the northeast corner of the property there. If you go out there and look, you'll see their curb. You see right-of-way that has like a transformer box. There's bollards around it, and those things are in the right-of-way as well. But their driveway, their parking lot driveway area extends out to where the curb is. So we kind of had to delineate those spaces. So this is more of a making sure everybody's on the same page so that when people go out there and see that they're paving into what is the road. And that's the same case. We measured 9.5 feet off their property on the north side of their property into DeLong, and then we did the same thing today on the east side of their property, going from the east side of Thomas across again 40.5 feet, and those are marked out. And then River City Paving's been hired by the Delaney's and has their equipment. They've been coring it out already. And then their intent would be to pave somewhere Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of this week, depending on when they finish another project. So are there any questions or concerns about that? Okay. The next thing that's, again, related but not on here that I talked to Jason about today is we obviously have parking issues out there. So one of the things I asked him about was they intend to have an ice cream drive-through, which if you envision coming from First Avenue, you would be heading south on Thomas Street. And then when you get past DeLong, if you would turn to the right, facing west, you'd be along the north side of their building, right where that greenish and white two trucks are, right next to the words Delaney's Auto and Ag on the map. That's where the drive-through will be. And so people will have to come in, pass DeLong, turn right, come along the north side, and that's where you'd be able to pick up ice cream. And then they'll have to go back out on DeLong and then come back to Thomas or go out on DeLong to go further east. And so I just want to make sure about that. So they have not determined exactly where their parking stalls will be marked, but I did say to them, we need to understand that before you go marking it and make sure that as people are pulling out that we may need to address some sort of no parking over there. Because if they're pulling in and pulling out where, like my vision was, if they turned on DeLong to the right, coming from First Avenue, turn heading west, and then where we're talking about where we're allowing them to pave, if they were to pull in facing southbound and they'd be facing the north side of the building, we can't allow parking there if people can pull in there. Does that make sense? Okay, so they're gonna let me know about that, and I did say that we may have to address some no parking. The Nappers also talked about the fact that on their side of the road, how do they have access if there's parking allowed all along there? And I said, well, if they delineate some sort of a driveway in the future along the Nappers property, then obviously we either have to delineate that and you can't block a driveway by ordinance, so if that were to happen, but right now there's no actual driveways. On Thomas Street and on DeLong, we also obviously have where it's sort of being used as a parking lot. And so one of the things that I explained to Jason this afternoon when I talked to him was that we're going to need to address that on a normal road, you do not park perpendicular to the way the road goes. So like right now, when you're going southbound on Thomas, everybody pulls into the left so that they're justified east and west, and they're like, you know, you don't do that on a normal street, right? You go parallel to the road. And so therefore, because they're parking east and west on the east side of Thomas Street, they're blocking what's essentially driving space that would normally be driving lanes. So one of the adjustments that I said that we need to start enforcing is making sure that people park parallel to the road on the east side. Because we can't tell them they can't park there, right? Like everybody else can park on their streets, but they can't be using it like a parking lot. He did say that there are some of the apartment building people that are parked there. I think the majority of it is some of his stuff, but there's like a white van there, for example, right now is the northernmost vehicle out there. And so we'll probably also have to address that to the apartment owners and make sure that their tenants get it out there. But I think some of that is cleaning up that area and making sure that as we make improvements out there and try to get things cleaned up, that people are parking the way you're supposed to park along a road.
Is
So-
there any way to sign that?
I mean, we certainly can, where
Can
we
you-
can say parallel parking only.
Parallel parking only?
Right.
I think we just need to sign it, because then it's not whose car, it doesn't matter whose car it is.
Oh,
whether
absolutely.
The ladies are an apartment persons, they're, have all been given fair warning
Right.
by signage.
Right, we just want to like warn everybody, obviously, it's not just to put the crackdown on people.
And I think over-sign it at first,
Right,
like every 3 spots.
right, so we'll look at that. And then once we sort of figure out like where his parking's gonna be, we may have to come back to the council and talk about some no parking areas. Like it may make sense that you can't park on one side or the other. So that's kind of like the general way that we're trying to address it. And then more importantly, the actual decision for the council to discuss is this same map. When we met with Jason this summer, he was also concerned about the drainage. And how, as you know, like Langworthy Court was, or Langworthy Street Avenue, I guess it would be, was originally supposed to go through. As we know, we closed the end of it where that cul-de-sac is. So that land is much higher, and a lot of the stormwater comes to the west, goes onto Thomas Street. And when Jake went out there, this was kind of some of the work that he thought that we should do, which is what we would have talked about at budget time. And so, and we have also had concerns by the Nappers about the amount of runoff that goes from Delaney's, heads north along, crossing DeLong, and then going into their property, and kind of doesn't really move the way that it should. And so one of the situations that Jake suggested would to be to put 100 feet of curb and gutter, as you can see here on this, along the north side of DeLong, which would, like the goal, although like Mark may have a different opinion, I think that he feels, Mark Weber, who's out there, I think that he feels like we shouldn't put more water, which everything pitches to the north, and, you know, then when you get to Thomas past this intersection, it goes down to like Bucky's Shop, the Knights of Columbus building, and it's a lot higher at this intersection than it is at First Avenue. So Jake's opinion, different than Mark, who's here tonight, is to try and get the water to move to the north. And so part of that was to cut back the intersection a little bit there, and then repave it, and then to add a little bit of what they're calling a storm runoff and a drain, so some sort of a catch basin in the intersection. And then I think he kind of talked about creating some sort of a crevice that would get things to move east and then north with an asphalt patch. And then again, curb and gutter along the north side of DeLong, and then on the west side of Thomas to the north of the intersection there. And then when you look at it, his estimate back in June was about $16,000. So because he brought up this paving thing, I said that I would at least bring this up. Obviously, you guys have a lot more history in that area. If anybody has an opinion, it's probably, they're paving tomorrow. We didn't know if he would wait until spring, and then we could have addressed it. So either way, I don't think that we're gonna do this right now, if he's not waiting, but kind of looking for some input on that.
I guess I have a question for Mark, maybe Mark can answer it. Mark, is there any way to take DeLong Street from the west of Thomas to regrade the street and be able to kind of divert it back around and have Delaney build a terrace back behind that fence just to kind of?
So where are you
Hold
talking
it.
about? Like where we're talking by the curb?
Yeah, I mean, he's pushing everything over towards the Nappers. Is there any way to?
No,
Can
No.
you come to the podium?
there's a, if you go up and look at it, it only drains from probably
From the middle of that
the
garage door?
first
over?
garage door to.
What street are you on? Thomas or DeLong?
Thomas. The first garage door, then the rest of it comes back towards the south.
Okay,
and goes around that.
goes around anyways, okay.
It goes down through his property.
Which would
Okay,
be
so that's a majority of
undeveloped
our-
Langworthy.
That's majority of, that, so
Correct, and as far
majority
as I
of his,
see it,
he's holding it there.
All of it goes down through his property. We put silt socks along there 5 years ago, and they're still there. So no water goes on the Napper's property, that I can see. It all comes down and goes right down by their, where they put their fence, so.
Which fence?
But when Jerry Otting owned all this ground, the water always went down through there. So I can't believe we wanted to push water to the north when it always went to, you know, you're trying to push water somewhere it never went before. So,
And what were you saying? So I'm not.
Oh, I didn't know if DeLong was pitched
could
towards
go back. I mean,
theirs,
yeah,
if DeLong could go around theirs.
3/4 of it goes back towards the south.
But you're talking Thomas, and he's talking DeLong.
He's talking.
I'm talking DeLong.
We're talking both. I'm talking DeLong, the one that comes up.
But the thing that you were talking about with the
No,
bays,
Thomas.
Thomas goes from, you're saying the northern bays, you think everything moves south towards Langworthy,
You want this?
and then drives around west.
No,
I guess on Megan's picture there, on the, where the curb, proposed curb is, I didn't know if where those,
There's the
where that semi and that tractor are, if that could be pitched back and come back around,
Pitched back to the
towards the south.
To the west and south?
To the west
south
and
is Delaney's,
yes.
north is
Towards
Nappers.
the west and south,
I'm
yes.
saying right here.
Yeah.
So basically, it breaks from here.
And then he-
Goes down, and it goes that way.
Yeah.
This goes this way.
Okay, yeah, I would guess, I was worried if this, if they're saying this is causing the issue, I didn't know if that could be diverted around.
It
That way?
does.
It does,
It
okay.
goes from there, and it goes that
Okay.
direction. There's a silt sock all the way along right here.
That the city put in, right?
Correct. Which was a temporary thing, and the city hasn't done nothing since.
Right. So I don't know if the
So
council
I don't
wants to,
see How, if you're planning on improving it, improve it, is what I see, you know?
Improve the right of way total.
Uh-huh.
You're saying improve the whole right of way?
Improve the whole thing, fix the problem. I mean, he's sticking money into what he's doing, put a decent street up there.
it's hard though right now from a priority perspective.
I get that.
So I did have conversations with Alan today on behalf of both of them. So I had said that maybe the council would allow, which was kind of our point of our public comment policy, was that when there's relevant information for an agenda item, that the council can allow people to speak, just like you did, Mark, so.
That's why I asked Mark.
Right, so I don't know if it's okay for nappers to speak at this time. It's up to the council, of
Yeah.
course.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
I'm Alan Napper, and my brother Gary's here today, and I do appreciate the time, Lisa. Yeah, there's some youngsters here, but, you know, there's been things going on up there since about 1999. And everybody needs to get home tonight, but the building was originally built too high in elevation. There were some things done to mitigate it, but, I mean, the building was wrong to start with. Then we get into storage on the streets, on Thomas and on DeLong Street. That has been an issue. That's council meeting notes and letters over the last, 15 years. And obviously, we heard about this real short notice and wanted to try to make the most of it. There is ongoing issues yet, and I'd like nothing better than we'd be good neighbors up there and all go have ice cream and sing Kumbaya, but we need to do something to get there. The issue is, the city has allowed whoever's in the building up there to use Thomas Street however they want it, and to use DeLong Street however they want it, literally since the building's been built.
with no mitigating things going on. We need to get something somewhere that says, here's the city's position on how those two streets have been used, so that we can be good neighbors. So there's a street, so DeLong is some sort of a street that you can go from the intersection of Thomas down to Washington Street where our building is. And I don't think Lisa realized it today until we talked. Gary and I own the all the lots on the north side of DeLong Street. And at some point, we're gonna wanna put up another building. Or we're gonna wanna have somebody come in and put a building up and sell lots. So we need some sort of a street that at least starts to work up on the intersection, question mark, then going down over the hill. Lisa gave a very good explanation while I tried to drive 80 miles an hour on the way from Wisconsin today, about, what some of the parking could be, what the parallel parking versus everything. We were talking about solutions, but something has to be put in place so that we're not in this merry-go-round of, it's better to ask forgiveness than it is to ask permission. That is how things have been done up there for probably 25 years. I don't see anything changing. We're here tonight, rush, so that Delaney's can start doing asphalt on Tuesday or Wednesday. That's not right. The other thing is that Tuesday or Wednesday, Delaney's gonna put asphalt in. And we have two nice color pictures of what someday may or may not be curb and gutter and water mitigation. So literally, you are increasing the runoff from the building this week with, let's discuss, maybe sometime later if we can find the money, we will do something. That ain't gonna fly. Now, Mark brings up the idea of a permanent solution. That's kind of an interesting thing. Wow. Now, he installed silt socks a while back. Toss my water, Gary. And the silt socks were installed. They were there. They worked. We have had at least 3 to 4 letters to the council that the socks have been destroyed. They've been destroyed because Delaney runs around with a skid loader and moves the socks. The socks are not as they were installed. How many feet of socks did we buy to put up there to back it up?
About 20 feet.
We have installed socks on top of socks. And everything is still running down into the lots. The grass is this high because it's getting watered every day with that. We're looking for solutions. And quickly, DeLong needs to be a street where you can come up Thomas, turn right, and go some distance, maybe even down to our building on Washington Street. Yeah, it's grass, it's a hill, etc. The street has been blocked almost 365 days a year. There is a chain link fence across it now. It is city property. It's not the adjoining property owner's property. And it has been treated like that for 25 years. And something needs to change. The chain link fence is up. I understand it's temporary. I accept that. The building's been built. It's a beautiful looking building. A lot of work going on. Fine. But the other night, somebody in a truck couldn't get through on the street because the chain link fence is there, headed north on our property and went all the way across the vacant lots over to Thomas Street and left the tracks, which has been an issue. So we met with Lisa in June, so obviously we were fairly surprised by seeing, oh, hey, there's a meeting Monday night and everything's got to be handled. We talked about the water mitigation issues, which is an issue. But the elephant in the room is the history of usage of city property by our neighboring business. And unless that's addressed, this will be death of a thousand cuts. Nothing will change. Gary, am I missing anything? Thank you very much. Yeah, we would like it to be something that works. Lisa talked about parallel parking. She explained it very well on my way here. Parallel parking maybe on this side and maybe on this side, and no head-in parking. And Andy mentions over signing. Yeah, but then when there's signs and there's rules, then rules schmools, that's for idiots. We don't follow rules. Something's gotta change. Lisa explained very well that there could be parallel parking along the north side of DeLong Street, as long as they're not blocking a driveway. We currently don't have a driveway. Makes me want to build driveways if I had money sitting around, but we don't have driveways. She explained it. At some point, we're going to need access there. There's lots to be built on by us or sold and developed by somebody else. We do not want an adverse effect to the value of the lots because of what the city has allowed to incrementally happen over time. Questions?
So, do you have something?
No, I'm just.
So obviously for me, I feel like everybody knows I'm a pretty big rule follower, and I try hard for sometimes an unpopular position, but sometimes you have to wait till it's the right time to address it. So I think with everything happening, I made it clear to Jason that has to change, that when you're on, Thomas is worse than DeLong, but DeLong is not good. I explained to him, there was a theft there where people broke into the building and stole a lot of his stuff, which is where this whole fence came around. And I made it clear, you have 3 separate parcels, and that we have right-of-way on the north, on the west, and on the south side of his main facility. And then he's got vacant land around it, and that his fencing cannot be across any kind of right-of-ways. I think in terms of allowing him to pave, I respect what you're talking about, that it's an ongoing thing. I don't think that we have a right, because of all that chaos in the past, to say that as he's ready to asphalt, that we can't let him do what other people would be allowed to do, which is why I came up with this, to make sure people understand, we're not letting them go into a space that anybody else isn't allowed to do. So making sure, we didn't just say willy-nilly, they actually had their line 12 feet into the right-of-way, which we're saying 9.5. So when Mark and I were out there, we measured it, we backed that line up, and he knows, I've talked to Copper, who will be the one paving it tomorrow, this is the space, nobody's going beyond any space that anybody else would be allowed to do. So I feel like that's our due diligence there. Whether we want to do some of this stuff, I guess, maybe it's delay, not that we were necessarily going to vote on something tonight, but I would rather have people like Jake and Mark meet out there and have that conversation, because I don't think any of us are experts on, not saying he's right or Jake's right or who's wrong or whatever, but having that, I like to vet that process with staff to kind of help them work through that process. And I can just assure that, from my perspective, and obviously I'll need Fred's help on that, but there has been a lot of issues that are unrelated to parking and related to parking, and we need to do our best to get that enforced, because it's the way it should be. And that's what I explained to Jason. He didn't seem adversarial to that. Again, some of those cars, as he explained, are not his. And it will take some effort to be able to say like, hey, you got to get these moved and put tags on people's, windshields to make sure. Fred can obviously legally run the plates. We can get a hold of who it is, talk to those owners of the apartments, and make sure that we work together on that. And that's my commitment at least. And I would, obviously want the council's support because you may hear about it as well when you try to kind of force change more uncomfortably sometimes.
And I don't know if somehow on our signage, because it seems like a lot of the people that are struggling with parking, or the reason it gets clogged up, is ag equipment. So I don't know if we can say parallel parking only, ag equipment to the rear, or to talk to Jason and somehow sign it appropriately, that ag equipment ends up.
Is it though
In
like
his
legal
lot.
to say that, or is it just it's so much wider, so it would even parallel parking would be
Parallel
in the
parking would impede it,
Yeah, parallel, a lot of the farm equipment is.
just because of the farm
It would just
equipment
be
that
in the
comes
driving lane if people drove that way,
Yeah,
right?
Correct.
A lot of farm equipment is twice as wide as a normal car, at least. Some of them are wider than that, depending.
So
on-
that's the key though, is it's not because it's ag parking, it's that when you're parallel parking and your rear end is this wide and you're hanging out into the driving lane, like you don't get to park a tractor on First Avenue for that reason,
Correct.
right?
Yeah,
Because
and I
you're in the
think-
driving lane.
And I guess it's maybe just being able to sign it appropriately to aid Jason, because he's gonna have night drop-offs. That it'd be nice that they could understand that around the side of the buildings where ag equipment can be parked and left. Like, we
Over
don't
where
wanna see-
Langworthy would be if it was.
Yeah, we don't necessarily wanna see a combine parallel parked along.
Along Thomas.
Along
But isn't
the-
that up to Jason to say, like,
But-
you need to park it here?
Night drop-offs would be hard. So he has somebody roll in tonight, farmer needs a tire fixed. He drops it off. It's the most convenient spot. That's not really an improved right of way like we've talked about. It's tough to know where you can and can't. When you pull in there, you do just think that's kind of
A blob of a
a
parking lot.
blob of a parking lot. So maybe if we can aid in signing it appropriately, that
I mean,
ag
do we
equipment
put up
goes around.
signs that say parallel parking, no ag equipment? Like,
Or no,
I think
No wide loads.
maybe a temporary sign below it or some ag equipment to the rear.
Right.
That, maybe we can talk to Jason that he would invest
But in fairness to
that.
what Megan's saying, he also has to make an effort to let his customers know when you're dropping off stuff that's wide,
Yes.
don't park it on Thomas.
Yeah, and I think signage with the city signage would aid in getting that
Right.
around the side of his building. And maybe if, with this improvements he's having, it would allow more accessible options for people to park, or more visible options. Because if somebody sees fresh pavement around, they'll realize it's that's his property that he paved. Maybe they'll keep stuff around his property. And it might be part of it that we got to talk to Jason, and I can go up and talk to Jason too, that where he parks the service truck and stuff, I know it's convenient for him, but maybe at night it moves around the side of the building, so where his service truck's parked, maybe that's where his drop-off spot can be.
Is it in his parking lot? I don't know where he parks.
Sometimes it's across the street, but sometimes his is
Mm-hmm.
perpendicularly parked where it should be parallel, so if his vehicles are that way, that might aid in.
Got it.
Lisa, if I may add,
Just come up to the podium if you're gonna talk, so that people can hear
And
you.
again, Thomas dead ends, so, I mean, that's,
Right, it doesn't go through, well, it doesn't from a right-of-way perspective. It goes to Second Avenue, but it's not open. Well, it's technically right-of-way to Second Avenue.
So technically, it's all right away. It's not even a street.
Well, it's right-of-way, it's not an
Well,
improved
That's what I
right-of-way.
mean. How far, that's like Alan said, improve these, get this street right. Get this curb and gutter along here. They're gonna park properly. You know, right now it looks like a dead-end street, which it is, but it looks like a mess. Not, Jason doesn't have to improve that side. I mean, it looks like it's not even wide enough.
the,
So, I mean, the city's gonna have to make some improvements there too.
the bigger thing, and I apologize for interrupting,
No.
Mark, but, is that DeLong Street has been a giant parking lot. And it does go through to Washington, adjacent to our building on Washington. And I guess number one goal, we can, talk about Thomas, but I'd like to see people turn and be able to drive. Again, there's grass there and everything, but that should be open. That shouldn't be a complete parking lot from Jason's building to our property line.
So we're gonna make sure that'll be part of what I told him, like, I can't tell him he can't park there, because it is partially improved. But he has to park in the spaces where people park. You can't treat it like, again, if you take the 50 feet and you would have parking lanes on both sides. So let's just use that math, like there's 31 feet in the middle if you had 9.5 feet, and I think I asked you, like, how wide is a semi-trailer? It's 8 feet. So if they were each on the side where they're supposed to be, and then you'd still have a driving lane. And we do need to make it clear, you can't use what we'll call the pathway that should be a drivable space to like block it, because it has been, but we just have to address it, because some of those things have just been allowed to carry on for many years. So that's my intent, to say, like, neither street can be blocked. We're not having you perpendicularly park, and we're not having you block an entire right-of-way as if it's your parking lot, because he has plenty of other land, more than most people do. Like, he's got to the west of Dillon, like between Dillon and Washington he owns, which is to the west of his land. And then he also owns between what would be Langworthy Court and the backside of everybody that lives on Second Avenue or Gary Owen. So I guess as long as the council is telling me, like, yes, this is what we want to get done, so that, Fred and I and Phil and everybody can work on that and try to come up with some other ideas. I don't think we're gonna fully improve these roads when, as I explained to you, like, we have a lot of roads that get driven on a lot. And so we have to address them in some timeliness, and then try to also at least invest some money in stuff like this. But I'd say for now, if the council's okay with it, at least you're up to speed on the issue. I can maybe, Phil comes back on Wednesday, so I'd want him to be part of that conversation. But we can maybe have a meeting out there while it's still nice out with Mark, and kind of have him present his ideas to Jake, have Jake come back out, since it's been a while. And again, by the time that I met with Nappers, the budget for this year was already done, so I at least wanted to address it prior to that paving being done this week. So, are there any other questions? Does everybody agree we need to address the blocking of right-of-ways?
Yeah, I agree, and I feel like the fence needs to be moved right away.
Yeah, he
And
knows
then-
that.
But how do we enforce that?
It's gonna be me telling him, and then me reminding him, and then at the end of the day, if it still continues, then Fred comes along for the ride.
Sorry.
The ticket book at some point. I mean, that's not our goal, to deal with that, but that's, at the end, that's the heavy.
And again, I won't step up, but, yeah, two things. I don't know, I'm sure Fred doesn't want to be running up there anymore like he has for the past, 10, 12 years. But the other thing, there are multiple court cases that had some sort of an outcome with the city versus Delaney. Do we know the result of those court cases? Which is-
They're all done, so they're not relevant to parking. You're talking, they're with the tires, and there's nothing out there that's, you asked me that back then, and there's nothing pending. So, we're okay. And honestly, like, I obviously wasn't here for some of those challenges, but he's been fine for me to deal with, and he's had reasonable conversations. Again, that doesn't mean that we don't keep, having small bumps, but I feel like, at least for now, he's working with me and trying to listen to the things that we're talking about, so. We're good? Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Back to number 9, Mr. Mayor.
Consideration of resolution number 83-23 to declare necessity and establish an urban renewal area pursuant to section 403-.4 of the Code of Iowa, and approve urban renewal plan amendment for the Cascade Urban Renewal Area.
So I think we went over that adequately, unless anybody has any other questions. This is approving that these various projects that we talked about 2 with external businesses and 3 internal projects. The highway, the administrative fees, and the reimbursing ourselves for the sewer on Buchanan Street. And then the other 2 are the Rosso and then the Callahan property. So if this resolution is approved, those would be added to the urban renewal plan.
So you just need a motion on resolution 83-23?
Yes,
Yes.
please.
You have mine.
Motion by Oliphant,
Second.
second by Telchin, roll call.
Hush.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Felch.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
Number 10, consideration of resolution number 84-23, setting a date of meeting at which it is proposed to approve a development agreement with Rosso Properties LLC, including annual appropriation tax increment payments.
So again, when we give money to a private business, there's an added requirement to have an additional public hearing. And so what this does is set that date for the council meeting on November 27th, and we would put it in the paper for next week, if approved.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 84-23.
Motion by Roush,
Second.
second by Telchin, roll call.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Felch.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
Hush.
Aye.
Number 11, consideration of resolution number 85-23, authorizing internal advance for funding of Urban Renewal Administration Professional Support Program for the Cascade Urban Renewal Area.
So again, because the city general fund or utilities pays for the cost of both myself and Kathy in terms of our people costs, wages, benefits, things like that, it's considered an internal advance from those funds that pay for ours, and it's advancing the funds on behalf of the TIF, and then eventually as TIF funds become available, we would reimburse ourselves. So this would be approving that, which we discussed a solid year ago at budget time.
I'll make a motion approving resolution 85-23.
Motion by Oliphant,
I'll second.
second by Roush, roll call.
Felch.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
Hush.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Number 11, consideration of resolution number 85-23, authorizing internal advance for funding of Urban Renewal Administration and Professional Support Program for the Cascade Urban Renewal Area.
This is again a hybrid. It's related to the Iowa Main Street Investment Group, which was the Brian Bach project of that brewery, turning it into residential and commercial. But because we paid for it, it's an internal advance, therefore not requiring it to be a second public hearing. So if this resolution 86-23 is approved, that would be approving this for the urban renewal plan.
I need a motion,
I'll make a motion approving resolution 86-23.
85-23.
6,
Oh,
number 12.
okay. And second? Second by Hush, roll call.
Roush.
Aye.
Hush.
Aye.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Felch.
Aye.
Number 13.
Ordinance of the Month Club.
Consideration of ordinance number 15-23 to reapprove 2016 sewer rates after recodification error.
So you'll remember that we kind of have randomly found various things throughout the process. Then when the council recodified in late 2021, when we checked with legal counsel, they basically said we just need to, as we find things, to address them as we find them. There's really no way to ever just hunt and peck through the ordinance. So as I was reviewing, somebody had a question about their sewer bill. I think I had addressed that at one point, and then I looked at my own bill like a week ago and was like, oh, like why does my bill, I went to the ordinance online, like checked the rates, compared it to my bill, and I was like, why does this not match? So then in talking to Chantel, found the old ordinance that was adopted in 2016, which when you look at that in the packet, had like a 3-tiered increase, which was when you did the plant, with the last tier going into effect on May 1st of 17, and that was all approved legally. But then in the 21 codification, like those rates never made it. And so those are the rates we've been charging. Those were appropriately adopted in 17 and then not transferred appropriately in 21 into the document. So my thought, up to the council, of course, and the 4 of you that are here would have to agree to that. Instead of going through the regular 3-reading process, because this is a cleanup, my suggestion is that you do a consideration of suspending the 3-meeting reading rule, which would be voted on first and require all 4 of you, because it's a supermajority without Mike being here. still requires 4 of you. And then if you approve that, to then consider the cleanup ordinance of just properly adopting the correct rates that we've been charging and have been approved for the last 5 years, 6 years.
I need a motion to suspend 3 readings.
I'll make a motion to suspend the 3 readings.
Motion by Roush,
Second.
second by Kelchin, roll call.
I just have a quick question.
Mhm.
Do other cities ever just do an annual percentage or an annual?
A lot of them. Like, they'll say, like, you can implement a 2 or 3% every pick a date. And I think that's something we should talk about probably for budget time.
Both for water and for
Yeah.
wastewater?
It just keeps up with inflation. You know, you could do a low end of inflation. You know, obviously, we've seen a big swing here, like things are sort of coming back down to that 3-ish% from what I'm hearing in kind of financial world. But obviously, last year and the year before that were pretty high. So you could do something like a 3%, and then obviously at any time, the council can address that. If there was a reason to go high or low from that, then you would change it. But it's wise because, you know, like, we haven't raised sewer rates since then, and we haven't raised water rates, I think, since 2015, and then you just take the cost of living, like, that's kind of what we've talked about. Without project money, like, some of that stuff just gets absorbed into the cost of inflation between all things, so.
Okay. I mean, I just remember when we dealt with our garbage truck, that the rates had been such that we had well over $100,000.
When you were doing garbage yourselves, you mean?
Yeah, when we're doing, you know, that had built up over the course of time. Or, you know, at that time, you know, at that point, we were able to, you know, I think the water, you know, things are going to be changing in water. Chances are we're going to be
We're behind.
doing other things, other processes, those type of things, probably wastewater, same way, some other
Yep.
thing we're going to have to hit some along way. It'd be nice to be able to at least have a cushion or a certain amount
Right.
built up over time, even if it's.
So I think that's a good idea, just because of my uncomfortableness with the fact that it's not correct right now. I would rather see you still adopt this tonight, and then whether you want to do it sooner than
No.
July 1, or at least have this conversation about the incremental
That's-
increases for
that's where
budget.
That's where I'm trying to get to, is
Yeah.
that we do something in the future that we.
I think that's a good idea, Bill.
Yep,
Yeah.
thank you. Roll call.
Hush.
I
Oliphant.
Aye.
Kelchen.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
I need a motion to pass ordinance number 15-23.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1523.
Motion by Kelchin,
Second.
second by Roush, roll call.
Oliphant.
Aye.
Kelchen.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
Hush.
Number 14, consideration of resolution number 82-23, personnel policy in regard to uniform allowance.
So we talked about this last time. I had suggested the 750. Andy, you wanted me to, prior to making that approval, make sure that we weren't going backwards. What I really found out was that we'll be saving almost $1,000 per guy, and that's assuming that it's still only the 2 guys that bow out, which we know that Ben and Craig don't wear the uniforms. So it was like a full $790 just for their uniforms. And then, did I put that email in here? Or did I not? So he had another thing, I don't remember what he called it. There's another line item on there that they have for, it's not really delivery, but I know you were concerned that like the delivery would stay the same and that we wouldn't save it, but it was like another $500 for the 2 guys. So it was like $780 or $790 for the actual uniforms coming off the list. And then another $500 for the 2 guys for whatever, it was like a weird name, I don't remember what they called it. So if you divided that between the 2 guys, that just picked, you know, rounded off to $250, that's $1,000 per person that we're saving. So I would say at least the $750. That certainly isn't gonna pay for absolutely everything. Like, if you look at it like if you're wearing the uniforms, are you better off? Probably not, because you're not gonna get that many uniform pieces for that price. But if you're not wearing the uniforms, you're better off, so. We'll see, whatever you decide, we'll have to see what the other 2 guys, but I know for sure that, I just think it's wasteful that we're buying uniforms for 2 guys that sit on the shelf and we spend the money giving it to someone who doesn't have to do anything for us.
So with the uniform, I'm all for this, but like, I'm just reading through here quickly, but like, appropriate workplace clothing, can they use this for their boots too?
They get a
already have
separate boot allowance.
Right, but like, how much is the boot allowance? I don't remember.
So it used to be 50, and then we upped it to 150, and that really isn't even enough. Like, we
Right,
can
exactly.
address
So
that.
that's what I'm saying is like, I'd like to see this be able to be used for boots too, because like, I mean, my husband has to wear steel-toed boots for work, and they're over $200.
Right.
You know, and he has to get those more than once a year.
I know they talked about seeing if we could up that, and maybe that's a personnel topic for budget time. This was more like, again, I brought up the uniform thing specifically, but we could certainly list it that a combination of uniform allowance and boot money can be used for any appropriate stuff. So if they wanted to spend less on jeans and turn in a $200 receipt, it's still the same amount of money.
To me, it makes sense to almost combine the two, like eliminate the boot allowance and just put it into the uniform allowance and just,
But if some take the uniform, we still have to distinguish what the
oh,
number
that's
is.
true, okay.
And you also gotta look at how many other places give boot allowances.
I feel like a lot of places do.
Some people just pay for them.
And then I did receive 2 calls on this of people just questioning it because, so you're looking at getting your water hooked up or you're looking at getting your trash can delivered and a truck pulls up and they're down the street and some guy comes beating on your door. Is your mother bill gonna answer the door for any random person, or if a person comes up with Cascade, which I know they can't wear them in the winter, will be everybody's argument. But if they come in with a City of Cascade polo on, or Cascade uniform shirt on.
That you
is
know
that
who they are.
a little more reputable, and then they could say, hey, I seen it on my camera that somebody dropped off a garbage toter and it was a City of Cascade person, or it's the whole thing of they're city employees. Do they need to be held to just a little
The thing
higher
is
standard
that,
of a uniform?
yeah, I mean, to me, if that's your argument, then we have to require them to wear them.
I mean-
And that, to me, is just,
Do they wear their high vis all the time?
well, not if they're not in the roadway.
If
And the
they're
thing
not.
is, like, Phil and Ben, like, is it Rhino? Is that like a contractor or something? Like, that, they've had navy blue Rhino hoodies on for, they'll sometimes wear one for a couple weeks on the outside, so there's nothing like that. Like, one of the things a lot of cities will do is have ID badges made for everybody, so that if somebody questions it, you can have an ID badge, because, like, they're not using those shirts. And the other thing is, we've talked about them, like, we got them summer shirts that had the logos on them. So that's the other thing, is that we can not just have T-shirts, we can get them hoodies with our logo. So at least that's on there.
And then that goes towards their clothing allowance, correct?
It's up to you guys. I would say for the amount of money that it costs, like, we gave them 5 T-shirts. It was not that much money. And like on the utility side, they buy them sweatshirts and hoodies that don't count towards that. So I'd say probably just buy them, but if they want more than what we give them, like 5 or something. If that's what's important to you, because if it's not important, like if Andy's point is important, then I'd say we should just buy everybody an allotment and let them between boots and jeans, because to get, again, good work jeans, like right now, they get 10 uniforms, 2 weeks worth. So at $750, you're not buying 10 pairs of pants and 10 shirts.
Not even close.
So that's my point, like, if your focus is like trying to make it equitable, like if you went up to $1,000 and wanted to count in their shirts, that seems fair to me, in a combination of that, because that's what we're saving. I don't know, I get your point, Andy, but
I don't know, that was the 2
the
calls
biggest
I
thing
got
that's gonna
from
make
the
them
last-
like stick out is a city vehicle. Like, nobody's allowed to drive up without a logo vehicle on, so like there's our logo on the truck, nobody drives in their personal vehicle. That's to me what you're gonna notice more than your covered up shirt anyway. And they just look, the uniforms are terrible. Like,
That's-
absolutely terrible.
That goes fully on the uniform company though, too, in my opinion.
I know
mean,
you said that, but.
I'll wear mine. I almost wore mine to here tonight because I didn't have time to change.
And we've talked about, like, Andy has blue shirts. Like, if our guys could wear blue shirts when they're on the roadways, like, those don't get trashed like high vis does. But as soon as you get high vis dirty, it's just
Dirty.
dirty. It's gross. So,
I mean,
There's-
I like the idea of the sweatshirts, like having something with the logo on it. To your point, I agree, like, it's a little less alarming to me because they're pulling up in the city vehicle, but I do like the idea of them having something City of Cascade.
Identifiable.
Yeah, on.
So then if that's what you guys kind of think is better, then I would say either go with $1,000 and then their shirts that they can pick a combination of go towards that. Or if you're gonna leave it at $750, then I would just say that like Kathy and I order them each a set of hoodies and a set of t-shirts. Like we got, the two that wear them, we got them 5 t-shirts for the summer and they're still decent, you know, and they cost $12. Like, it's not a lot of money. The hoodies obviously are a little bit more.
Any other questions? If none, I need a motion on resolution number 82-23.
Well, what do we want to put in there?
So
I-
I think it needs to have the logo. Like, that's my opinion. Like,
You agree with the logo?
I agree.
Okay. And I think if we say that's what you have to wear, then that's what you have to wear.
Yeah.
I do
Again,
like the
the
idea
winter.
of saying, if it's gonna save us $1,000, then I think we say $1,000, but then they can choose what they want to get out
For
of
their
that.
logo
Like
clothes.
Kathy and Lisa can come up with an assortment of, or go to Kelly and she can open a shop for them and whatever.
Right.
And they come in and they pick, they gotta pick 5 sweatshirts and 5 t-shirts, and that's what they.
And it has to have the logo.
And it has to have the logo on it, so Kelly can design whatever it needs to have, so that it's consistent, and then they can use the rest of it for boots or jeans. But I do agree, I think it needs the city logo on it.
That's fine.
I mean,
That's what
yeah,
you
like,
want, Riley?
for our, like, we have a shop and you can only have selected.
Yeah,
number
you
of
can't just
things.
buy weird stuff. It's-
Yeah.
We have that.
And for them, it would just pretty much be high-vis.
Yep.
You know, they could get something that wasn't if they were going to like a conference or training and they want to wear a normal. But I feel like they probably still just, they don't care, they wear high-vis.
So when Megan's saying that, are you getting rid of the boot allowance then? You lumping that since we went from 750 to 1,000 all of a sudden?
I wouldn't take that off, because the boot allowance has been the boot allowance.
Yeah. I think we have to keep that separate.
Well, yeah, we also
I mean-
went from 750 to 1,000.
Well, Lisa was saying that we were saving $1,000 by not doing this.
So based on mixing all this together, it would be required that if they don't have a uniform shirt, they have to wear city logo clothing on the top. And then I would say, if we're counting the shirts in their uniform, that the uniform allowance should be 1,000, keep the boot allowance at 150, but to your point, that they can, if they choose the non-uniform dollars, they can also mix their boot allowance towards that. If they're using the uniform, they just get the 150 right now, till we decide to up that. But what's the difference if they, but if they're using the uniform, they're getting the uniform benefit, and then they just get the 150. So we can word it, like, let me look here. Are you guys okay with the 1,000, since that's what we're saving? And include the shirts in it?
Just struggle, that's after you get through your first pair of, or your first year of jeans, and if you're still saying they're city, the 5 shirts that you got Ben and.
Well, they're
Yeah,
about ready to be.
they're
Like,
about
they
ready,
probably,
but-
and they'd have hoodies then for the winter, and then get, they probably need a few more t-shirts.
I mean, that's,
And like Greg, we
After you
didn't
get
get long, tall ones, but
after you get through your first year and a half, or 2 years, you're gonna have a
Pretty hefty.
pretty hefty, I
Shirley,
mean,
are those your mittens right there?
Shirley,
Are these your mittens right here?
you're gonna have the ability to buy yourself a lot of jeans.
well then leave it at 750 and don't count the uniforms and just let me allocate that was what I was proposing before, is that the jeans can be at the 750 and then we'll get them. That's kind of what like Chantel does, is that she buys them logo shirts, and basically like if they still have 3 that are good and 2 got trashy, then she gets them 3. Like she kind of has them show, like, well, you can see, because they start like, oh, those look kind of cruddy. So then just leave that out if that's what you feel like. Again, we're probably at the end of the day.
So I have a question. So have we ever looked at switching uniform companies? Like, I mean, if you
They're
guys had-
uncomfortable.
But like, I'm saying, like you said, yours are comfortable. So is it just
I don't mind mine.
I
Is
think
it
the
really
bottom
different?
line is like take the 4 figures of, like, this is my point, and I say this because I'm a mom. Like, I have 2 kids, one's thick and one's thin. For, like, they don't want to wear the same jeans, and they have all the same jeans. So like Ben and Greg are uncomfortable in those clothes. They want to wear what they feel is
Is a
like
fit.
comfortable to their body. And then you take Phil and Marty, like, they're the thins. like, I'm not saying anything about the other two, but like, they have different figures, and like I said, that like, Kathy, that's what I struggle with, is saying like, you all have to wear the same clothes. Like, and I just think like younger generations, like, maybe it's not an age thing, but that's what it's tending to be, is that
I
like,
get that, because
they
Fred
don't
didn't
wanna wear
the
it.
jeans that he got when he worked at IMCO. Like, he wore his own jeans because he hated the jeans that they had from their uniform company. So like, he wore the shirt, but he didn't wear the jeans. So he had to buy his own.
So that's what I struggle with. I'm just being honest. Like, that's me not really talking as a city administrator. That's
But
just,
he get compensated for his own jeans,
No.
is where I'm, we provide it. That's where I really, really struggle with this.
but
But
we're
I have
pa-
an issue, like, literally throwing money away. Like, if they're not, I get it.
And-
I wouldn't want to wear those jeans either if they're not comfortable for me.
So I'm just saying though, my first year, I'm gonna be pretty good about buying my jeans. I'm gonna go buy some Wranglers for my first year that are comfortable, they're gonna fit. I'm gonna buy the $50 jeans, but I'm willing to bet by about year two, we're buying Ariats and we're buying all these fancy jeans that are never gonna see City of Cascade work for about 2 years until they're on their way out of the lifespan of, these are now my work jeans. They're gonna drop down. I would use the crap out of the system. I'm gonna buy economical jeans for my first 2 years. When
And
they
wear
start to
that.
wear out, the second year, I'm gonna have a whole crap load of Ariat jeans, and then they're gonna flow right in to my work jeans, and I'm gonna have a brand new pair, I'm gonna have 10 brand new pair of Ariat jeans every year.
well, again, if you want to go with utility, if that's what our concern is, it's still the same amount of money though. Like, whether you want to buy 10 pairs of cheap jeans or 5 pairs of fancy pants, like, Chantel buys the pants. She says, like, you get 5 jeans, and that's what she pays for, and they go out and pick them. Like, to me, like, and theirs is different because they have to have FR clothing, so they have a little bit less. But again, to me, like, we can leave it the way it is, and it'll be good. Like, we'll just spend $2,000 or, yeah, $2,000 and pay a uniform company. Like, I have a hard time saying that we're gonna enforce that those two guys who are uncomfortable, like, that to me is just not a hill to die on.
We're gonna spend $2,000 no matter what.
Right, but why not at least spend it on something that people are comfortable in? Like, again, I'm probably speaking as a female, and I'm speaking as a person that doesn't have the same figure as my coworkers and as a mom. Like, I have a hard time saying that I'm gonna say, you're gonna get written up. Because at the end of the day, like, if that's what we're saying, like, they should be written up and disciplined for not wearing the uniforms. Because right now it says you have to wear the uniforms that we provide, and that I struggle with. Like, that I don't think is happy workplace efforts to just, for
Would
me,
you
it's
be
not
more
a hill to
comfortable
die
if we
on.
lowered it down to $750?
I just struggle when we have a service for them all, and then we're gonna cherry pick 2, and it's
Well-
just a way that you can take advantage of the system so easy on it.
Well, first of all, let's clarify, they did not bring this up.
I know that.
This is me saying this
And
is
I-
dumb, to pay that money. Like, they're not wearing it.
And you guys can go ahead and make a motion on it, either way.
There's brands of no-name jeans that are 20-some dollars that you can't wear them out, and they're as comfortable as could be.
But again, it's like
without-
the dollar amount,
Yeah.
and then let people decide.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like,
Everybody will use the 750 every year, though. If we give them 750, they'll use it every year.
Well, we're using it anyway, and literally going to nothing, to sit on a shelf. Like, I'd rather them at least get clothes that they're gonna wear for $750 and let it sit on the shelf. Like, that makes 0 sense to me.
right, they never asked me to bring this
They'll
up.
wear them, but it'll never be for a city.
Who cares? Who cares?
So, okay, so maybe we just have to put specific requirements in that say like, hey, you have to keep your clothes up to a certain level so that if they're getting even remotely close to being worn out.
But that's the whole point of why I said they have to turn in receipts. Because if you start looking like a frump, then I'm gonna say, like, you can't wear those anymore. As opposed to, like, some people just give you $750 on one check, and then you go do whatever you want with it. Like, I want them to turn in real clothes every year, like real receipts. Here are the new jeans I bought. I guess if you wear your fancy pants on Fridays or you wear them to work, whatever. But if they start getting frumpy and looking like they shouldn't look at work, then we have an issue. Like, I can address that. Like, you look all holy. And where are those 10 pairs of jeans that you just bought for $75. I don't know.
I'm fine with giving them the money to buy what they want to wear, as long as they're up to a certain expectation.
Right. And I assure you that, and we can even put something, we can add a sentence that says something about like, the city has a right to evaluate the quality of clothing that someone is coming to work in when you're getting paid for that stuff. Because I can assure you, the quality of what they look like right now, in the way that you're investing the money, like, hello? Like, Marty comes in with a shirt that says Matt. He went to training the other day, and the guy was like, are you really Matt? Like, and it's his shirt, but that has the wrong tag. And then, like, the high-vis stuff is, like, literally falling off, and it's, like, it's supposed to be high-vis, and it's, like, the color of her shirt. Like, it's stained green, nasty. Like, they don't look presentable.
Yeah, I like the idea of having a line that just says, like, you are representing the city of Cascade and should dress accordingly.
Right, and that the city has, we can just say, like, the city has a right, if an employee's appearance via their uniform allowance clothing, like to, whatever, I'll put it in there,
Isn't up to a standard.
right? So I'd either say $750 and we buy the shirts, or $1,000 and the shirts go towards the dollars. That would be my suggestion.
I'd say $750 and then we buy the shirts.
Yeah.
That's what I had
Make
originally
sure it
gone
has
with.
a,
Well, it's just less money.
yeah.
Bill, Andy,
Yeah, it's fine, I think.
you good?
So a motion,
I'll make a motion to that effect, Kathy.
Motion by Oliphant,
I'll second.
second by Roush. Roll call.
Kelchin,
Nay.
Roush,
Aye.
Hush,
All right,
Oliphant.
Aye.
Number 15, consideration of resolution number 87-23, Wellmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, 2024 renewal, 3.15% increase.
So this was the renewal amount that we got from Walmart. This is unrelated to who our agent would be. I haven't done anything with that yet. But regardless of who our agent is, we still get the same renewal. I would say for what could be, that's a decent renewal. I've seen them as high as 30% in my career. We have to let them know that we want to take that plan by December 1. So unless anybody has any questions, the recommendation would be to approve it. You can see on the one chart that I gave you that they did go to an alternate price on a Walmart plan, and that has higher costs. So this is by far the best.
Considering everything else, that's not a lot of a increase.
And this is for January 1.
Is there any questions about this? If none, I need a motion on resolution 87-23.
I'll make a motion on resolution 8723.
Motion by Kelchin,
Second?
second by Hush. Roll call.
Roush,
Aye.
Hush,
aye,
Oliphant.
Aye.
Kelchin.
Aye.
Number 17, consideration of ordinance number 16-23, change library board meeting time, first reading.
So this kind of started, this was initiated by Kathy and I. So we have like the library bills coming in, and they meet on the first Tuesday of the month. And sometimes, obviously, that's the first, and then they're asking for reports from the previous month. Kathy can't give them any final reports that close out that month until she gets the bank statements, which come in the first few days, not, the last day of the previous month. So we suggested to them changing their meeting to the second Tuesday, which they agreed to, and they have like bylaws that they changed. But as you can see, we have a city ordinance to that effect. And then we also have other ordinances that I didn't bring forward, but want to kind of get your input. So I went to Pat O'Connell. In my memo, I explained what he said, that we can list them in two ways. One being if we expect them to meet every month, which I would say like the park board and the library board are our two, and obviously the utility board, I have to look if that one's in there. But those three are expected because they sort of manage departments with real employees that are doing work all the time, that those are meeting every month. So we can say like at a time decided by them, and that they're expected to meet every month. And then for the, what we call occasional, which is really planning and zoning and board of adjustment that don't have something every month, but as something comes forward for them, then we can have a separate type of wording. Instead of, like right now, it says the park board meets at 7 o'clock. So they're meeting at 5 o'clock. And we'd like the library board to meet. So instead of having to change the ordinances as someone asks to change that time, obviously council always needs to be in an ordinance specific for us, like second and fourth Mondays. So is anybody opposed to that? Okay. So then for tonight's purposes, it's just the library board, and we can do that as a first reading. And then for next time, I'll bring the other committees and reword those, if that's all right.
Sure.
I need a motion on ordinance number 16-23.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Roush,
Second?
second by Oliphant, roll call.
Hush.
Aye.
Oliphant. Aye. Kelchin.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
Number 18, consideration of resolution number 88-23 to cancel second December city council meeting.
So the meeting itself needs to change either way if you don't want to cancel it because it's on Christmas Day. Assuming nobody wants to come here on that day. Otherwise, I think last year we sort of managed through the December meeting and then handled it, kind of addressed whatever, if there were some emergency bills that we had to pay or something. But if you're agreeable, we can change it, or this resolution is to cancel it. Up to you guys.
Is there anything library related that's gonna have to take action, do you think?
We should be able to do that at the December 11th
be the only-
meeting. Right, and if we had to somehow back up that loan, it's the loan documents.
Okay.
I
was just,
If for some reason, then we could just have a short special meeting, but not address it as a full-blown meeting. Just
yeah,
be
no,
kind
that
of-
was just my only big thing. I knew-
That'll be the goal,
good
to
with
not
that?
have it then. So if you want to cancel it, and if I have something like that come up, to your point, we'll call a date when we can get together.
If there's nothing else, I need a motion on resolution number 88-23.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Oliphant,
I'll second.
second by Roush, roll call.
Oliphant. Aye. Kelchin.
Aye.
Roush.
Aye.
Hush.
Number 19, discussion on vacant building ordinance.
So this is one of those, as we were preparing to send out the letters, and kind of had to stop there because I didn't think it was really what our intention was. But the way the ordinance is worded as vacant, I was explaining, like, he had something listed, and I said, well, just so you know, there's apartments rented upstairs. And obviously, you know that our focus to start was commercial buildings. And so the way that the ordinance reads currently, our attorney, Steve Leidinger, feels like they don't qualify as a vacant building if there's an apartment upstairs being rented out. So if that's the case, because we were gonna have to send the letters with apartments upstairs to comply with what he thought, as they weren't vacant. And I thought, well, I don't need to send them a nuisance letter that doesn't explain the vacant thing, and so he just suggested that I come to you. So if you believe that our intent was that even when the upstairs is rented, but the downstairs is vacant and sitting, storing stuff, whatever, if that's still who we want to address with the vacant ordinance, then we need to make a slight change. So I'm looking for your input before I have them draft anything.
I guess I thought it was that the whole building was vacant. I didn't realize it was.
And I took the impression that it was the commercial space on Main Street.
That's what
The
I always
first
thought.
floor space.
Yeah.
Because then if you have like we have some down there that have an apartment upstairs, but there's literally nothing happening on the first floor, then they're good to go, even if they're non-compliant.
I guess.
But then we have residential on up to 50% of the first floor as well. You could have
Where they have like a
apartment,
back apartment.
yeah,
yeah, it's up the back. Oh,
yeah,
correct, yeah.
Well, we still have one that has the front, and that was understood that once that tenant's gone, then it has to change. Don't allow residential on the first floor.
You could have two apartments, and
Up and down.
2 or 3 apartments in a building and an empty commercial space.
Right. And remember, the intent of this was to sort of not give up on your downtown and try to force to not have vacant buildings, if at all possible, to discourage that, to get them either up to code or at least be registering them.
But at least with tenants upstairs, the building's being maintained.
It's being,
That's
Yeah.
where I'm with you. I'm with you on that, because I feel like it's their building. And I understand, like, I want there to be a thriving downtown, but like. it's
But the
still
thing
their
about it
building.
is that, remember, the intent was is that we can get in there and see it. So when you have upstairs tenants, like, we still don't see the downstairs.
Right, but it's gotta be maintained enough that there are people living upstairs.
Maybe.
I would think so. I mean,
It's up to
Question
you
is,
guys.
basically, does it have to be 100% occupied?
I don't think it has to be 100% occupied. I think that what I thought was, which was Riley thought, is that because we were addressing commercial and industrial space, that we were saying if it was commercial and industrial space that was vacant, but that's where he's saying it's not worded. So that, the way we have it worded now, he's saying that we exempt your vacant commercial space as long as you have something residentially occupied. So we would never say a percent under what I'm talking about. We would say, if you have a mixed-use building and the commercial space is what's vacant, it's vacant. Because we have lots of mixed use downtown. That's kind of the,
I mean, it's pretty much all mixed use downtown.
right. Because we're trying to get compliance. They can still keep it vacant, but it's, remember that that allowed us to go in, to see it,
To see.
to make sure it's compliant, and you really don't have any way of knowing.
Like, in my mind, this ordinance was for two reasons. One, it was for the buildings that are totally vacant, to make sure that they're not just
Deteriorating.
deteriorating to the point where they're not gonna be.
Or deteriorating the buildings
Till they hurt,
adjacent.
yeah. And then the other piece was to address like vacant downtown spaces that
You'd like to see.
you'd like to see a business there, or,
I'm with you, Riley. I do want to see a business there, but like, I also feel like we can't, that, to me, that's borderline infringing on the owner's rights. Like, if they've got it maintained enough that they can have people up, renters upstairs, I don't feel like we can go in and be like, nope, we want to see your building, you need to pay to be on this registry. Like, I agree, the buildings that are 100% empty, I definitely, because they are falling apart, whatever, and it's hurting the buildings next to them, definitely agree that that is what, to me, that was the purpose of this.
You're assuming, I'm not saying it's wrong, but I feel like in that explanation, which I get it, but you're assuming that just because there's someone upstairs,
Upstairs.
that it's compliant downstairs. So that's the only, like, where I would add to getting in there, like, we can't get in there.
Our downtown ordinance does not allow first floor storage though, correct? It can't just be used as a storage facility, I believe, correct?
I feel like, kind of. You didn't ask me that ahead of time, so I'd have to go back and
I
double
just
check.
thought about
That's
that, 'cause
okay.
that would,
I don't want to answer for sure. I feel like that's what everybody thinks, but ordinance of the month club. I have to check. Because we have that,
correct.
but
That
we don't
would-
know because you can't get in there. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what, I don't know what the right answer is.
I know, but I just feel like that's borderline infringing on people's rights. I don't like that.
But it still always can be vacant. It's just like this was to get in and see if it's compliant.
But do they have, that, maybe I'm confused, but like, for us to go in there, it has to be put on the registry and they have to pay to be on the registry.
If it's vacant, if it qualifies for being vacant. So when we talked about it being vacant, we talked about, remember, like, one of the definitions was a commercial property that's not open to the public with regular hours. Because when it's open to the public and it has posted hours, then when it's posted, I can walk in and look around as a citizen, as a council member, as a city administrator. I can physically view it. But when the commercial space is on lockdown and never open and vacant, then I have no way of knowing. So you're assuming that's where I'm just saying, like, that's where I have that little hiccup in your explanation, is that because someone's upstairs doesn't mean the downstairs is compliant. You can still have like holes where people, like, not people, critters can get in, and it doesn't mean that they necessarily go upstairs, right? Like, I don't know, like.
so I
do
guess
they-
Megan, I'll give an example. So there was a property downtown, probably within the last 2 or 3 years, there was an apartment renter upstairs, and you could look in through the windows on the main floor, and it was literally just full of trash. So
Anyway.
like, yeah, like, it's not vacant because somebody's living there, but like that entire bottom section. And then you don't know that till it's too late. And then what happens if the floor collapses or something like that?
And almost when you think about it, when the downstairs is vacant and someone is living upstairs, is there some degree of more urgency Like, it's not affecting the neighbors anymore, but you could argue that, like, you want to make sure it's okay downstairs because there are people living there. We could, like, kind of turn it that way. I don't know. And at the end of the day, remember that, like, it's just about getting compliance. Because the other thing that I struggle with, like, I get your point about compliance, like, people have the rights to do what they want. But you never see a perfectly wonderful building sitting vacant. Right? Like, you work at the tap room. Would you ever just see that sitting there? Because it's like a beautiful building and someone invested in it and it's up to code, and then it doesn't sit there. So typically when it's empty for a reason, not because it's just a fabulous building that someone wants the right to keep empty, because you just don't. So then it's like this, like the ones that you want to get in because they're not fabulously compliant, they tend to be the ones that are vacant for a reason.
I hate the word compliant. Like, I hate it so much.
Just remember, though, it's like about the people that came in saying, like, we struggle with.
You work in the finance industry, like, there's so much compliance.
Maybe that's why I hate it. Like, I don't
We
know.
can start the ball rolling with some of this, though.
Yeah,
and
I was just thinking the same
modify
thing.
this.
Well, the thing is that there's for sure two or three of them that I would have sent a letter to, and I don't want to send a letter that's like, oh, by the way, now you're considered vacant. That's kind of what I struggled with. Like, if we're sending it just as a nuisance letter and not vacant, and then somebody else gets a vacant letter, like, my hope was that we just send everybody one at the same time. That's why I didn't send any. Because I thought, like, you know, that's going to be the chatter, like, that we just are sending letters. So to me, the ideal was they all go out at the same time. Like, I'm fine if that's what you guys want to do. I just struggle with saying, like, oh, I didn't say anything about the vacant building thing. I just told you about the nuisance thing, but now 6 weeks later, now we added you to the vacant list. So that was my check-in
But
before we
is that a
send
bad
it.
thing? Like, we can get in there under the nuisance, can't we?
Can't get in. You can only look on the outside. Whatever I can physically see from the outside is what I can send in a nuisance letter. Whereas the vacant building forces that we can get in. And at least look. If you're fine, goodbye. But again, like, that's the thing, like, they're not fine. Or they wouldn't be vacant. So if you want me to send them out, I will. I just thought from a enforcement perspective, that doesn't seem as easy to deal with.
So we'd have to change the whole ordinance before we could even send them out then?
Not the whole ordinance. There's
Or
like a
just-
line that he wants to add, but I wasn't gonna pay him to draft anything. I just said, I'll come and talk to you guys. Because I was like, but I feel like the reference to vacant is about commercial and industrial. And he's like, yeah, I still don't. He was not comfortable saying that the upstairs not being vacant, that he was comfortable calling it vacant.
So, question, so this ordinance is loosely based off of what was put forth by the Iowa Economic Development.
Mhm.
Like, is their point of it that the entire thing is vacant, or?
Doesn't really matter, I didn't ask. I mean, I can ask that before the next meeting, but at the end of the day, like, they're not coming here to help us enforce it or end up in court someday, so we kind of have to go with. I mean, I think they were trying to say, like, you want to push compliant buildings, because again, then, remember they talked about, like, don't give up on your downtown, or when you let people have residential on the first floor, you're giving up on your downtown space, and you want to have space, like, you have beautiful buildings and then not so beautiful buildings, like, right next to each other, that have, like, holes and things falling off of them, and
But I guess like the reason I'm asking is like, okay, so if what they provided that we roughly base this off of, like, if that's standing in other communities, like it's not being challenged, stuff like that, like I don't want our little piece, our little difference causing us issues to really have the teeth to be able to like dig into these.
I spoke to a group of clerks. I don't feel like we're pushing ahead of something that most people don't, right? Kathy was at the clerks meeting and they asked me to present on this. You know, and they just talked a lot about like, oh, our council members don't want to do this. Or they have a buddy, like one person said, like, my council member came in and it was their friend. And I was like, they're like, what should we do? And I was like, well, ask your council member if the ordinance says if you have a friend that they don't have to comply. Like, it's not worded like that, you know, so that was a room of everybody in our ECIA area. Obviously, there was a few clerks not there,
So-
but nobody was doing that.
Do we stick with what we have? Start there.
That's kind of where I feel like, let's
Conquer
let's
this.
See
conquer the
what
ones that
happens.
are completely vacant, because those are the ones that are like causing major issues for their neighbors, right?
And if we need to address something in the future, the council can address something in the future.
Thanks, Andy.
You can address it in the future.
No more we, mister. 2 more we's.
Still got me for 2 more meetings.
Okay. Direction given. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reports, Fred.
I really don't have anything other than what was submitted. Anyone have any questions for me?
Maybe not this meeting, but maybe at one of the upcoming ones. Unfortunately, winter's coming, so just, it might be
Talk
good
about
to.
snow ordinance,
Snow ordinance.
parking,
Yep.
sidewalks.
Maybe we need to look
Discuss
at that, because didn't we decide that it doesn't talk about the same language in the ordinance of the month club?
Yep.
So maybe you and I can look at that, because wasn't there like a 24 or 48 or 72?
There's like three,
Yeah.
there's
Three
like
different
different in 3
places.
different places, yeah.
Yeah, maybe look at your sidewalk or get with
So
Lisa
maybe
and
we
look
can look at
sidewalk
those and then
Go from there.
see about next meeting, because we could get it done before the majority of winter if we want to change something.
We can do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Fred.
Fred.
Thanks, Fred.
Library Design Committee?
So everybody approved the plans last time. The bid documents went out as planned on November 3rd. We had a pre-bid meeting on November 8th last week, right? Yeah, last week. And we had one of the contractors that bid before show up, a new general contractor also show up, and I think there's other ones, but I think they just didn't, you know, it's not a required meeting, it's not mandatory, so hopefully we'll have good bids. They don't do anything till the end anyway. They're due November 30th. And then we'll give a report to the council after that. And then obviously the goal being to approve it at the first meeting, only meeting now in December, so. Hopefully good.
Gotcha. And do you have anything?
Sure, of course. So a couple updates. The Brian Bach Old Brewery Building, that's coming along well. There's a threshold of, is it like 500 and some odd thousand that he had to spend to be able to do a first draw on the grant. So Kathy and I will be working with him. We have to figure out what the state wants for requirements. And then we'll do a draw on that, and we'll probably have to contribute some of our TIF reimbursement on that side of it. So we'll be working on that. Reminder, if everybody can come on Friday over the noon hour, we're having a fundraiser lunch for the mural. I know that Sean took around flyers to businesses that were willing to deliver lunches to people, even if they can't come, like for our grilling lunch fundraiser. Those are $8 for a burger, chips, cookie, and water. If some of you can be there, there'll be a short ceremony at 12 o'clock. People from the state, the mayor will speak. We'll do a ribbon cutting. Ben, the artist, will be here. And then we did purchase the swag. So there'll be shirts, a set of 8 postcards that you can buy, the 18 by 24 large print that'll be autographed by Ben. And then pint glasses and coffee mugs are the things that we have that'll be for sale. We'll try to, looks like the weather's going to be nice, so assuming it is, we'll be grilling and doing everything on site in Bryce's parking lot. If for some reason the weather turns, then it would be do the ribbon cutting and have the lunch here. What else? We are hauling sludge right now, so if you see, they're taking sludge from the wastewater plant, and then Laura Stainer's farm is the approved farm where we spread the wastewater plant sludge, so Greg is allowed from his previous employer to do that, so he works technically for him, hauls it, and then Ben has been helping with that, so we're working on that, which gets done twice a year. That culvert that we talked about at the last one, when you chose to do the smaller amount of crack sealing, that work is pretty much done. If you were out that way at all, Mark Weber's crew cleaned out the one culvert, was the one that was filled with silt, and then we also put more rock and riprap on the west side of that opening there by the culvert, just to kind of create less erosion. On the east side, there was also a small bank there that had kind of built up. And when Mark we went out there and he talked about pulling it back a little bit, as soon as he knocked off some of the dirt, it was riprap on the back side of that as well. Kind of just had come over the top. So that work is done. You can see the First Avenue one. They're working on that. That should pretty much be wrapping up as well. In early December, we're going to participate in the high school's career path day where they, we did that last year as well, where we kind of, what Haley's point is like exposing city, different jobs. So we'll have, Fire's going to come with us. Fred will be there. Usually have some of the public works guys, utility guys. And then the
Reach
chamber.
out to EMS too and see if they want to?
They were sent the same thing.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
I haven't heard back from them. But
Okay,
I know that Bert responded when I sent it to them.
okay.
Garden Club for starting the decorations for the holidays downtown. They did that. And then on Sunday, I think the boys basketball team is going to help the crew of like Chantel, Linda, a couple people like that decorate the park. Remember, we didn't do it last year because the gazebo was in shambles or gone. So they'll be decorating that. And then, of course, on Small Shopping Saturday, which is the day after Black Friday, there'll be some events down there like we usually have with Santa, but it'll all be decorated starting this coming Sunday. On your desk, I gave you a copy of the burning ordinance. And I'm going to bring that up next time, so I'd like you to look at it. The part that I highlighted, I kind of gave you page 2, but it talks about open burning. From the police department's perspective, I feel like they have talked about that that's not what we've told people, that you can burn whatever you kind of want to. If you read through that, I'd like to have that conversation with everybody in 2 weeks. I would say most communities with people living close together don't allow this kind of burning. It doesn't seem like it was missed in East A. It seems like it was in there, like when Fred and I looked it up today, that it was in there before, but I think prior to next spring, we should have a conversation, because it, in my opinion, is like country burning, not somebody right next to your house where you can burn and have somebody right next to you. So please make sure you read through that before the next meeting. Kathy's been working on the annual financial report, the AFR, and that has to go in the newspaper next week, and then it'll be on the agenda for November, as she has to submit that to the state by December 1, and then same with the TIF reports. So we'll have both of those on the next agenda. So she's been working on that. And the last thing, I want to thank Onward Bank. You'll recall that they had that fundraising hamburger deal, and they donated $2,300 towards the playground. We got that check. We did a picture. Haley came.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
They did a really good job.
Yeah. So those should be the same burgers for Friday. The mayor thought they were delicious.
They were.
So
They were.
that is all I have. I'll send you if you have any questions.
Going back to the garden club, that group does an absolutely relentlessly good job in what they do.
Yeah, they're a
I
good
don't
group.
care what season it is. You take and think of what our summer was for being dry and what those flowers look like. They were on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
It was absolutely
Yeah, they do a
the
great job.
best.
Take a lot of pride.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
what it
had,
shows.
I had some comments from people from Monticello, just envious of Cascades versus what Monticello is producing on their main
Yeah.
streets.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Again, people don't maybe recognize, but that's, the garden club is volunteers. They sign up on a schedule, I think they water on Tuesdays and Fridays, and then when we had such hot weather, we had a
Yeah.
conversation about them doing it 3 times, so I think they switched to like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so that was maybe 4 weeks out of the summer, so they really do a good job, and like you said, spring,
Oh,
they put the artificial flowers, and then they did all the fall decorations, and now Christmas, so they do a great job.
do they hire out?
Yes, you're able to volunteer.
Congrats to the mayor and Bill for retaining their seats, and congrats to
Thank
John
you.
for just serving with you.
Welcome soon. You can be part of We as soon as Andy isn't.
Oh,
meetings.
boy, that's good. Public comment, you have a limit of 3 minutes per person, only items on this agenda. Seeing none, Chad, do you have anything? Okay. If nothing, I need motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Oliphant, second by Kelchin. All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
I need to go turn off Boxcast in my office. I don't know how to do it.
Megan, are you excited for your new office building?
Not particularly.
That's my building.
Is it really?
Yeah.
They're not gonna have a ton of seats in there. Like, I think it's like 25.
Yeah, Mom showed me the email, like,
Yeah. I'm like, I can't go Wednesday night. They're having a big reception at 4 in there, and I can't.
yeah.
I have to work at the tap room, so.
Where's the new building?
The DePaco building.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, Voices building.
Jack.
You're up in the penthouse?
I'm on 5th floor.
Yeah, the penthouse?
No, there's another floor above us. Well, it's just like a conference room and meeting space upstairs.
Is that, we're not gonna be there.
That's where you guys are meeting on the 5th floor.
Right.
Or 6th floor.
6th floor, but like, where are we?
Second.
Second, okay. Yeah, you'll never see me.
I don't think I'll ever see my mom either.